You reviewed Crash in Sane
Oh,
Trilogy.
we're going to get into it. Mm-hmm. Yay.
Let's get into this. You gave it a 6 out of 10.
I did.
Had a little bit of backlash.
Just a little.
Which is weird because everything I see on Twitter from people who really I don't know, they said the first game is really bad now. Second one is probably the high point. Third is not. Was that your takeaway?
The second one seems to have just the best little variety. By the time you get to the third, it's just, yeah.
It's interesting though because everybody seems to acknowledge that one of the games in that trilogy, the remastered trilogy, is good. Yet they still think that it's a faithful homage to the original games, which I guess we wanted to talk more about after I get some of your thoughts on the review, whether this needed to exist outside of nostalgia. But anyway, first I wanted to ask you, so overall, kind of broad strokes, if people haven't read your review or watched it, what'd you think?
I think as far as a remaster / remake goes, you couldn't really ask for this game to look any better. Vicarious Visions did a really good job of just sort of modernizing what Crash is, but Crash is also a very simple game and one that I don't think really stands the test of time. I think if you didn't play Crash Bandicoot and you didn't have nostalgia for this and you started to play it today, you would probably think, well, this is a pretty simple game. It doesn't really do anything interesting.
Yeah.
Crash has great personality. Some of the level designs are okay, but by and large, it's a very simple game and one that's antiquated at this point.
His fur looks too real for this kind of animation. It looks weird.
It's a bit strange. I mean, it looks super modern, but it plays like an old game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did want to talk just in general because I think it was last year, Jean-Luc, when the BioShock remastered collection came out, he was saying when there are certain cases where, with those games, sometimes remasters can hurt a game, the things they sacrifice and whether they actually are faithful or are too faithful. In this case, did you think that there was an opportunity or a missed opportunity to maybe expand on the original game's formulas? Obviously, that wasn't really what they were going for, but...
yeah, I mean, if you just want to judge the game based on what the developers were going for, I mean, they did a great job of doing that. But I think, you say, does it remain too faithful? Well, I think maybe in some parts, one of the things that people have been giving me crap about is that in my review, I say there are points in this game where it's just you can make it super far into a level and there's one jump that's just super, super, the constraint for success versus failure is really tight and you can lose, a lot of lives very quickly. So people said, oh, the game's too hard, 6 out of 10. Well, no, but I do think it's uneven at points. And that was the point that I was trying to make, is that this game just kind of very abruptly introduces something that just seems incongruous with everything either before it or after it in the same level. And I think some of that could have been evened out. It's not a matter of I couldn't beat the game. It's a matter of, wow, this is not consistent, and it just seems almost like an accident. Rather than something that's been thoughtfully designed from top to bottom.
Felipe Aidar in the Twitch chat was saying, it is weird that they updated the physics but not the level design. Is that accurate? Is that how you felt?
Well, the level design they have not. The physics, I'm not quite sure what they're referring to. I do know that, yes, you can use an analog stick now in addition to the D-pad, which I actually felt was kind of strange because a lot of these level designs were created for, this sort of very clean controls of a D-pad where you need to, step accurately to the right or the left or forward or backward depending on the mission you're in, because it could be, you're running from a boulder and you have to very accurately navigate pathways that get more narrow.
Yeah.
So I thought the analog controls were a nice touch in some areas, but almost not worth using the whole time.
Yeah.
Which felt a little strange. But the physics specifically, I don't know.
Someone said they unified the jump physics across all 3 games, kind of I don't know, a recent thing I did, Metro Redux. They took the Last Light physics and graphics and implemented them on 2033.
I can understand that. It's been so long since I played the originals that I just didn't notice that change.
And you wonder what went into that decision when you're thinking about how those physics originally affected 2 or 3's level design, maybe, or the actual hitbox detection with the boxes or enemies or whatnot.
There's the detection. I'm sure that's fine, but it's more or less the measurement of the layout of a level, right? Like how things line up and the distance between them and the timing required to hit those.
Yeah.
It's a fine game, and I'm seeing everyone who really loves Crash, they still really like this. I liked Crash when it came out, and the first 3 games were still relevant. I don't know. I've thought it was okay.
It's tough to say because you would, if you're a huge fan of the trilogy, it wouldn't be a bad thing if they just completely remade it, right? Like Resident Evil Remake is one of the better remakes ever. Like, I always cite that. That's a different thing, right? They're not just remastering it; they're actually kind of rebooting it a little bit. Or Ratchet and Clank last year on PS4, they took the original game, but they borrowed a bunch of really good aspects from the later games, from the future trilogy, and from just the rest of like Up Your Arsenal, Going Commando. There's so many like innuendo titles in that series.
I love Ratchet and Clank, that last remake. Having never played any of those games prior, but like
Ratchet and Clank's one of my favorite games, and I agree it was a very
they cherry picked what worked, right? Like, and then also threw in like really great controls. Like I forget what iteration you were telling me where they finally steered away or steered towards the like aiming while like strafing and jumping and stuff like that. Like they didn't have to do that.
It was pure third person, like from Ratchet's perspective in the first game, and then in Going Commando, the second one, you had the option to turn on strafe and reticle, and then the third one, Up Your Arsenal, that was the base. But yeah, they updated that to actually not be a pure third person game anymore in the first game. But you as someone who had never played the first game got into it because of that remake last year.
Oh, totally. And just I think Crash had like the similar as far as showing the really nice blending of motion and motion blur. I don't know, like that makes everything worthwhile. And you look at something like Crash and like you see that and it looks great, but like hearing Peter talk about how it felt, they did not update the controls, right? Like
no, they did update the controls, but the level design wasn't there to meet the updated controls.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. But again, another key point to understand is like something like Ratchet and Clank, even if they just did a remaster, right? Like those games were still. They came out at a time when 3D platforming action had kind of been figured out. Crash Bandicoot was made when those things hadn't really been figured out, and standards have changed quite a bit.
Right. Well, that's the question, right? When you're going back to something like Gears of War a couple of years ago with the Ultimate Edition before 4 came out, like that's always a challenge with remasters. Like, do you want to stay faithful or do you want to update it for modern palettes in a way that like it's not just like rose tinted glasses? You're actually playing something that's fun with everything that's come out after the original release. Like, I don't know, Callie, you reviewed Yooka-Laylee earlier this year, and I know you're a big fan of, first and foremost, Banjo-Tooie, but also Kazooie, kind of to a lesser extent. But Yooka-Laylee, I think, is another prime example of 3D platformers are kind of, outside of Mario games and, Ratchet and Clank to a certain extent, and I'm sure I'm missing a bunch, but they've kind of faded to the periphery as opposed to what they were, at the advent of 3D. Yooka-Laylee, did that kind of game feel as relevant or even like kind of like, did you feel like it was dated because they were sticking too closely to the original 3D platformer formula?
Yeah, it definitely felt dated. I think the biggest issue with Yooka-Laylee is that they were trying to meet the fans where they were instead of kind of bringing the fans to something, new or inventive. So it was very, run of the mill. It felt like Banjo-Kazooie with a reskin and a more finicky camera. So, there were a lot of things that didn't work for me. There were a lot of things that were fun. I do like I had the collectathon kind of thing is something that was nostalgic for me, but I think that they just didn't execute it well because it was so close to what I expected from Banjo-Kazooie. Like I didn't have to try very hard to go through the levels because I was like, well, I've played Banjo-Kazooie 1,000 times. I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I know what all the secrets are already. They didn't bring anything new. And the camera was a mess.
Which sucks because that's kind of what can make or break a 3D platformer.
To be fair, they did patch it out, but when I reviewed it, it was pretty wonky. I think this is my gameplay even where I was like, I can't even see. I look like I'm really bad at this kind of game because it's like the depth perception is off or something. And so this is another case where like if I misjudged a jump or like there were times where like I couldn't get high enough, like a platform looked like I could reach it from down below, but then I would jump and I couldn't reach it, stuff like that. And so the dated aspects combined with the technical missteps just made it kind of an unfortunate.
It looked like they finally they had a pretty big like patch or update for this game I think last week, and the one that stuck out to me because I remember playing this was something that was really frustrating was that gibberish noise that they kept making. Like that was almost a deal breaker alone. Just that constant babbling was so loud and obnoxious that maybe worked in the last games, but now it's just super annoying. So anyways, the update, I think you were able to like skip it or turn it off or something.
Yeah, they did update it where you could go really quickly through dialogue or turn it off. There's some sort of option, but honestly, like I have no desire to really revisit it now that I'm done with the game.
Yeah, Michael Hyam actually went down to Irvine recently at Blizzard to play StarCraft Remastered. Now StarCraft 2 has how many expansions now? 3, is it? I think 2 or 3. And that was another case where we saw, the remaster was kind of announced, and of course now it's like actually, it is going to fit modern graphics and everything. It still looks pretty faithful to the original game, but it's kind of picking Michael's brain, and it sounds like it's doing enough to actually kind of tap into that nostalgia, but also still feel like a game that can be played today.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, because RTS is another one of those genres which there's still good RTS games coming out. Last year, Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 3, God, that title's a mouthful. That was actually a really good game. I played that and I liked it a lot. I know Dave Jewett over in the UK plays a lot of RTS games still, but maybe it's just difference of genres. And like Pete, like you said, Crash was at the advent of like kind of 3D platforming. Right? It was Naughty Dog's first outing, if I'm not mistaken.
As far as I'm aware.
Yeah. And they were still trying to figure things out. And of course, like before they got to Jack and Dexter, and then there's some like platforming aspects to Uncharted, but you have to wonder whether Crash, the Insane Trilogy, actually there was much reason for it to come out outside of nostalgia. Like,
yeah,
is it relevant anymore?
That kind of goes back to my point. Like, if this game came out, it wasn't called Crash Bandicoot, I don't think people would give two shits.
Yeah. I played Crash in Uncharted 4, and that was enough for me. I don't know. Any other remasters that I'm missing that might like I said, there's a really good video on GameSpot Jean-Luc did about the BioShock collection and how those kind of almost like hurt the original games in terms of updating them for 2016. But
you can look to 3DS. The work on Star Fox 64 and 3DS in particular is really good.
Yeah.
In terms of remaster. And those same
or Ocarina and Majora's Mask,
as well. But Star Fox 64 stood out more.
Majora's Mask, I was really happy because they updated the bosses. So
it
it was
a
like,
lot, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was still it was modernizing it enough to where like they fixed the problems that game had with bosses, but also it was still faithful to the original. Like I thought they did a really good job with Majora's Mask.
Ocarina, even just thinking about the water temple, how they updated that and moved the iron boots to an item slot as opposed to equipment, so you have to pause all the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really it's a very small change that doesn't affect your whatever your fond memory is,
Yeah.
but it greatly enhances the experience
Yeah.
returning to it. And then Wind Waker HD is another example of adding the swift sail and getting rid of that really frustrating end sequence.
The
that was
Triforce
all.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you have to sail around and it takes forever. Adding the swift sail was really smart.
Yeah.
And that's something that that I was really frustrated with in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire for Pokemon. They didn't update any of the travel, and it's just so frustrating. It's so bogged down at the end.
Yeah, and I like talking to you about this stuff, Pete, because you, as someone who puts a lot of time into looking into game preservation, and you collect a lot of older games and everything. So there's always that fine line between, is this game good today? No, but it's still a faithful maybe preservation of the original game. It must be a fine line to walk. I mean, I know you're not making these games, but from your perspective as someone who plays a lot of them and collects a lot of the original versions.
Yeah, I was wondering what they were probably thinking when they were doing the Crash and Sane Trilogy. They've gone so far to make it look so good, and then they just adhere to, again, dated sort of levels and stuff like that. Part of them must have felt can't we just do something new with it?
Yeah.
And maybe we'll see that. I mean, maybe the work they've done is just the foundation for something else.
Cool.